Good evening, Houston. Good evening. I am Demetria Smith for Houston Mayor 2015. And before I get into my intro of myself, I want to let Houston know that I filed since April the 3rd. April the 3rd. With that filing, I have not been invited to any mayor forums or debates. But I want the women to know that I am in this race and have been in this race. My job here in this race is to fight against poverty, oppression, discrimination, and inequality. I am Demetria Smith. My background is real estate, finance, theater arts. I know how to fight the system. I also lobbied a bill in Austin against child protective services. I am Demetria Smith for Houston Mayor.
And I failed to point out that our timekeeper is right in front of you. I know you saw her and you did a good job sticking to the time, so thank you for that. But I wanted to let everybody know, the First Lady of the Church, you can hold your hand up so the candidates will know who you are. Make sure they see the time. Marty McVeigh, you're up.
Thank you very much. I'm glad to be here in the house of the Lord with all of you today. It's a real pleasure to be here with you. I'm a businessman. I started my private equity firm back in the late 90s, and I'm glad to be on stage here and engaging with you today and telling you about what our plans are. These are very important forums, very important debates, and I commend Council Member Boykins for putting this together. What I really want to focus on in my administration is economic development that brings jobs and prosperity and good infrastructure and roads right to your district. I think that District D in particular has been looked over for many, many years, and F is one of those as well. So I want to put a lot of focus back onto job creation right here in this district. So I'm glad that Councilmember Boykins put this together for us. Thank you.
Bill King, you have 1 minute.
Thank you. My name is Bill King. I'm running for mayor of Houston. I'm running because I love the city, because it's a great city of opportunity. I experienced that. I grew up down in the southern part. My dad was a pipe fitter, worked my way through the University of Houston, and there were these incredible opportunities in the city. But the truth of the matter is we have a city government that's not living up to the greatness of our city today. Our infrastructure is a disaster. These streets are an embarrassment. You can't drive down any street without running the chance of blowing out your tires. That's not right. And by the way, the infrastructure is taken better care of in some parts of the city than it is the other. I also find that people increasingly don't feel safe in this city. Our police department only caught 8% of the burglars last year. Our finances are a mess. It's time we need to get this city back to basics. We need to fix these streets. We need to catch the crooks, and we need to balance our budget.
Ben Hall, you have 1 minute.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Ben Hall, and I'm running for mayor of the city of Houston. It's an honor to be here, and I thank you so much for your listening ear. I want to serve you as your mayor. This is a city of two distinct opportunities. One is the west side and downtown that gets all of the benefits and all of the money. And there are other neighborhoods that are ignored and overlooked. As your mayor, I believe that everyone deserves to participate in both the benefits and the largesse of this great city. We ought not have South Park, Sunnyside, without wonderful restaurants and wonderful grocery stores for them to dine. We should not have a city where crime is perpetrated against the elderly without being reported to the police. You deserve to be safe in this city. As your mayor, I intend to make sure that all neighborhoods are protected and enjoy the benefits of government. I'm Ben Hall, and I'm asking for your vote.
We're going to start now with the questions from the presidents of our super neighborhoods. Doing it in alphabetical order, we'll start now with Tamara Bell, president of McGregor South Super Neighborhood. We could start here to the left. Mr. Rowe, do you want to, you just passed the mic down, but we could So, how did you? Is that
It's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, it's fine. Okay, I wanted to ask the candidates, what are your opinions of Chapter 42?
No, Chapter 42, let me explain what Chapter 42 is. In fact, Chapter 42 is a high-density ordinance that intends to have more residences built in a limited space. That works in some areas of the city, but it does not work in all the areas of the city, and I'm against trying to force that as a policy on private citizens and the occupation of their property. Yes, it is to be desired inside the city limits. I think we've had it for inside 610 Loop. But now the mayor is intending to try and have it expanded out to Beltway 8. I am a proponent of letting people use their property the way they want to use their property, as opposed to government forcing them and controlling how the property is used. I commend the intent of the chapter, but as a former city attorney, I respect the right of citizens to control their property. I want little government to control your property. I want to protect you. I want to make sure that you have good jobs. I want to make sure that you have a safe environment. I want to make sure that you have fair opportunity. But I'm not in favor of government telling you how you're going to use your
time is up.
property.
Thank you, Mr. Hall. Our next question. Do some of the other candidates want to respond as well? Go ahead.
Well, Chapter 42, as Ben says, is our ordinance that tries to balance the rights of private property, rights versus your rights to use your home, and this is always a delicate balancing act. There are some times when adjoining uses interfere with your property. For example, there's some crushed concrete plants around the city. They throw up a lot of dust, and it's not right that they impact your property and your home. So this is always something that we have to balance. We've had some amendments to Chapter 42 recently that have tried to improve that balance, and it's something we're going to just keep working on as an ongoing basis. But I agree that private property rights are sacred, but you can't use your private property in a way that is a nuisance or a burden on the surrounding property owners.
I'd like to respond. No matter how many ordinances we pass and how many Chapter 42s that there are, you can't build on a bad foundation. The city of Houston does not have a plan, and that's the reality. We have to have a master plan for the city, and that takes vision, and that takes leadership to put that into place. So, building, as I said, building on a bad foundation doesn't get us anywhere. So we need to really look at all of the functions of government and how we're going to improve the city, and I think we need to look at everything from A to Z again.
I want to apologize to the candidates. That was my mistake. Some questions are going to be posed directly to candidates, and only that candidate will answer. So that was my mistake. I'd also like to acknowledge Councilman Stephen Costello before we move on. He's a Houston engineer, also a member of Houston City Council. Did you want to take an opportunity to respond to that question, or we can move on to the next?
Quickly, I'd like to. Chapter 42 is an interesting problem that we're faced with, particularly because the city is advocating for redevelopment and revitalization. The problem with Chapter 42 is an antiquated document. It's constantly it's amended reactively rather than being proactive. And what we need to do is take another look at Chapter 42, do a complete overhaul, and then every so often, maybe every other year, take another look to see what changes that we need to make to address what's happening economically wise in terms of development of the city.
And the next question to the candidates is going to be asked by Mr. Lawrence Chamberlain, President of Sunnyside and Crestmont.
Good evening. My question posed to candidates Paul Keenan McVeigh. District D has its share of multi-family apartments. What are your plans to revitalize our neighborhoods with single-family residents on vacant lots throughout our community to bring back its revitalization?
Do I go first on this one? I really appreciate that question because I am in favor of single-family home ownership in the city of Houston. While I commend the effort to have high density in certain neighborhoods, just imagine the wonderful benefits of owning your own property, coming home and it's your house. As your mayor, I'm going to be an advocate, a strong advocate for home ownership, single-family home ownership. Now, what does that do? We have a number of weeded lots on which the city has a number of liens. Just imagine if we were to sell those properties to the homeless or make those properties available and have homes built up for these individuals to live in. Also, just imagine the population that wants a house as opposed to live in a condominium and an apartment. This will give us great opportunity and solve two problems with one solution. That is giving home ownership and also having houses on vacant lots. I'm Ben Hall, and I want you to vote.
Back in 2005, 2006, I worked with Mayor White at the time on the land bank program called Laura. I think some of you in here may be familiar with that, where the city started foreclosing for back taxes and various kinds of liens on lots. We have a bunch of those lots now. I'm not sure what the count is now. I think it's up into the hundreds, if not even in the thousands, and we're basically not doing anything with them. I would like to look at an urban homestead program where we give those lots to somebody who has the financing to build a home for their down payment, because so many families are precluded from owning a home because they don't have a down payment. Those lots are not doing us any good. If we get them back on the tax roll of a homeowner, I think that would be a great use of it.
Thank you. Neighborhoods are what Houston is. Houston is made up of a collection of neighborhoods. Neighborhoods is what makes this city great, and it is our future. But to have great neighborhoods, you have to have jobs. You have to have economic development. I have to do my job as your next mayor to bring manufacturing, to bring technology to this city, to make sure that you have a job in which you can buy a home. So no matter how much we can sit up here and talk about, programs and abandoned lots and, foreclosed on property, I need to make sure that you got a job. And that's what I'm going to do every day as your next mayor, is to get up and make sure that you have a job and you're taking care of your family. Thank you.
Our next question will be asked by Mark McMillan.
This question is directed towards Mr. McVeigh and Mr. King. Illegal dumping occurs on a daily basis around District B. Solid waste will remove a pile, and by the end of the night, another will reappear. What steps can the city take to help catch and stop illegal dumping, especially in areas where this happens frequently, like the mini class?
So, in about 2009, Mayor White asked me to study neighborhood protection and this issue in particular. So I spent a fair amount of time looking at it. And you're right, there are neighborhoods in this city where you can hardly drive a block and not see a stack of garbage, typically on a vacant or abandoned lot. And part of the problem is that normally solid waste doesn't pick that up right away. They go through this process of writing a citation to somebody that doesn't exist, and they can go months before they pick them up. And you all know that once a pile of trash is put down someplace and everybody thinks that's where they are to go throw the stuff, so these things sort of grow over time. So I think first of all, solid waste needs to pick them up every day regardless. And then second, we need to get serious about enforcement. I mean, we're not serious about enforcement in anything in this city. We're only solving 8% of the burglaries, but certainly this is something we could do something about if we have the will to do it.
I agree that enforcement is one of the keys to making sure that this doesn't happen. We can do simple things. We know that we don't have enough police officers on the streets, and we're going to get that under my administration. We're going to get more police officers on the streets. But what we need to do is simple things, like we can put mobile camera systems out in areas that are prone for illegal dumping. We can have those monitored so police officers can look at license plates and go after people that are doing this. We can do other things, like putting out a receptacle once a week at these places and say, if you're going to dump, put it in the receptacle. once a week. You know, we can do things to make it more economical, more feasible, beautification of your neighborhood by just taking some simple steps. And I think that what the city is lacking right now is good management. So we need to get back to good management. Thank you.
The next question comes from Kathleen O'Reilly.
This question is for all candidates. In some neighborhoods of District D, infrastructure is in very poor condition. In some of the neighborhoods, what will you do to ensure there's a focus on reconstructing more neighborhood streets rather than focusing primarily on major thoroughfares? What will you do to make sure that there's a focus on rebuilding neighborhood streets as opposed to major thoroughfares?
So this is for all the candidates, or I'll start?
For all candidates.
Okay. Rebuild Houston, when I campaigned for the passage of Rebuild Houston, it was essentially for a neighborhood revitalization program. And the administration, once the program was passed, deviated from that and focused more on major thoroughfares. We need to do a better job of reallocating resources into the neighborhoods. And what I'm proposing to do is sort of to split the funding, where we have half the money we split amongst the 11 district council members and empower the district council members to ask the community at large what they want in their neighborhoods. And then as the administration uses the second half of the money for the major thoroughfares that span across those multiple districts. But it's all about engaging the public and empowering your district council members, because who better to sell this program than the grassroots level, boots on the ground, that district council member. Thank you.
Stephen, we need to be honest with this crowd. You supported Rebuild Houston, which was an extra tax on occupants that made you pay for rain tax on your property. It was bad policy then, it's bad policy now, and the Supreme Court said that you misled the citizens about that. Number two, even though it was bad policy, Stephen, your friends were the ones that benefited from it. The engineers went down and got the lucrative contracts, and salary increases were used not for the purpose for which the voters approved that. So while you may have come up with the idea, it was a bad idea for the citizens of this city. Number two, this issue about dumping tires in this city and also having dumpsters in black neighborhoods and brown neighborhoods, that's just bad policy. I don't see those dumpsters over in River Oaks. I don't see them in Tanglewood. I don't see them anyplace else. I don't want to invite people to come and dump their trash in these neighborhoods. As your mayor, I believe we have to be more inventive than that.
I campaigned against Rebuild Houston. I think it was a bad policy at the time also. You know, we did infrastructure in this city for 200 years in a particular way, and that is we periodically had bond elections, and we listed the projects that were going to be done and how much they were going to be cost, and the citizens decided whether they wanted those projects done and whether they wanted to pay for them or not. Rebuild Houston unwound all that, and now you have a bunch of City Hall insiders and bureaucrats making these decisions about what projects are going to be done in your neighborhood. We need to get back to the citizens voting on what projects that they want to do, which is the way we did it for the last 200 years.
Thank you. I appreciate this question, and I've looked at this a lot. And what I've come up with is that the formula is wrong. It's been... Sorry. Yes. The formula is wrong. I think that the policy has been worst first. I think that we need to change that and put at least 30% back into the neighborhoods. That doesn't get us anywhere. You go to some of the streets in the city of Houston that are heavily traveled, and those streets need looked at. But really, I think that we need 30% to go back into the neighborhoods. Good neighborhoods equal quality of life. Quality of life means good economic development that we can bring right to this city because we have something to sell. We have ways to attract businesses to come to the city by good quality neighborhoods with good quality streets, sidewalks, all kinds of infrastructure that's also below the ground. Thank you.
Houston, if we take a look at rebuild Houston, has Houston really been rebuilt? If you go outside, excuse me, pardon me, we've been talking about rebuild Houston since 2 years ago. We've been talking about rebuild Houston long before that. But what part of Houston is Houston actually rebuilding? How are we using the funds? Is the funds actually being allocated to disparate communities? Absolutely not. So we need a mayor in office to make sure that we have fair policies that make sure money is allocated throughout Houston. Let's not leave the 99% out and only cater to the 1%. It's time to actually rebuild Houston.
I want to take this opportunity to introduce another candidate who has joined us, Sylvester Turner, State Representative Sylvester Turner, who is also a candidate for mayor. And just real quickly, far be it from me to tell some of the candidates how to speak into a microphone, but some people, some of you are a little bit too close, so back off the mic. Okay, so we're getting some comments from the audience, Mr. Turner. 1 minute, the timekeeper is right there in front of you.
Hello. Thank you. First, let me take this opportunity to apologize for being late. I told Councilman Borkin that I had another event at the same time, so I do apologize for being late. On the question of rebuild Houston, let me just say that there are a number of historical neighborhoods that have been systematically ignored for a long time. Whether it's Sunnyside, whether it's South Park, whether it's the Nickel, Fifth Ward, whether it's Acretone, Fulfo, a number of historical communities have been ignored, and the infrastructure is totally outdated. The concept of rebuild Houston is a good one. You need a reliable, sustainable funding source. The problem is that the dollars are not going to where it's really needed. And we need to focus the funding source on building the infrastructure in those areas that have been systematically ignored over an extended period of time. They are still flooding. They're still the major. There are areas in many of these ignored areas that used to didn't flood at all. Now they do flood. So we need a reliable, independent source, but it needs to be dedicated and the money needs to be used for its intended purpose.
So the next question will be asked by Mr. Castillo.
Thank you. This question is for Representative Turner, Mr. McVeigh, and Councilmember Costello. What does economic development mean to you? How does it look specifically for District D? And how do you plan on increasing economic development in low-income communities within District D?
You can start from the left and then go right. Move to the right.
Thank you for the question. Economic development is really a combination of revitalization, both in terms of home ownership and income distribution, as well as job creation, as well as creating companies and businesses that come to a community. And that's why over the years I've advocated for the Food Desert Program to build grocery stores in underserved neighborhoods to create jobs for those communities. But I looked at it more as a grocery store coming in and then sort of having a multiplier effect and having multiple other businesses associated with that, creating more and more jobs for the community. But you have to dovetail that with the economic development of home ownership as well as revitalization of a certain program, and that's why infrastructure investment is critical to economic development as well. Thank you.
I appreciate this question. Economic development is going out and recruiting companies to relocate to this city that brings wealth, that are not here already. That takes a mayor to establish an Office of Economic Development that reports directly to the mayor. That's something that I'm running my campaign on. One of the pillars of my campaign is economic development, to make sure that we are worried not only about the next 6 years, but about the next 60 years. And the only way that we can do that is to make sure that we're recruiting companies that diversify our industrial portfolio. We cannot rely on the oil field for our future, our financial future. We must bring manufacturing and technology here. And the question related directly to this district is primed to bring technology companies right here. We have plenty of space to do that. We just need to go get it. And historically, the city of Houston has not had economic development. We've got 380 grants.
Your time is up, Mr. McVeigh.
Thanks.
Let me say that there are some parts of this city and some people that are doing extremely well. But there are some parts of this city and people that are not. 24% of the people in this city are the working poor. They're working every day, but they still cannot afford insurance. 29% are uninsured. We don't have it. Economic development means that there should be opportunities for everyone. When this city does well, everyone ought to do well. There are people in this home, for example, in this city and in other areas. They can't have affordable housing. They can't afford it. There are folks that still have blue tops on their roofs. What we need is to provide better job opportunities for everyone. There are people who are unskilled, unemployed. They need jobs, and they need good-paying jobs. We're now looking for welders in this city where you can make $55,000 to $60,000 a year. We need to encourage that and incentivize that even more. We need to revitalize communities. We need jobs in our communities and good-paying jobs in our community so people can take care of themselves and take care of their families. We need opportunities for people to have their own homes. Only 47%.
Mr. Turner, your time is up. Thank you very much. Before we move to the next question from Ms. Tamara Bell, I do want to acknowledge former Mayor Pro Tem Judon Boney, who is here tonight. He's also a candidate for City Controller. We've acknowledged other candidates of your
City Council members has been taken off the table, so I'm not going to ask that question. The question I'm going to ask you all is, we are deep in debt at the city, as you all well know. Our $5 increase for Rebuild Houston turned into $50 to over $100 for most of us, and we've yet to see rebuild in our community. What I want to know is, what are you all going to do to help us get out of this crisis as we grow from the 4th to the 3rd largest city?
Did you say that question was for each of the candidates? Okay. Mr. Costello, do you want to start?
Well, I'm trying to get a better understanding tomorrow of your question. Is your question about Rebuild Houston?
No, I'm saying that, even after you paid the extra money for Rebuild Houston and we've seen no results from it, what are you all going to do to get us out of the deficit that the city is in?
Thank you. As your budget chairman, I understand the deficit problem that we're faced with. And the challenges that we have on our deficit have to do primarily through our existing debt model, as well as our pensions that are driving the problem of the city right now. And I've been advocating for pension reform. I went to Austin. I helped draft up a bill for local control because we have to do some slight modifications to our pension systems. I'm not calling for going to a 401k plan. I'm calling for minor modifications to our pension system to honor the commitment that we have to the people that work for the city, as well as honor the commitment that we have to the taxpayer that we're using the money wisely. The problem that we're going to have, if we do not get pension reform, I don't care what these people say up here, they're not going to be able to achieve any of their goals without pension reform, because what we're going to be doing, we're going to be letting people go. We're not going to be providing the public safety that we need to provide. We're not going to be doing the public infrastructure we need to provide unless we get this reform done. Thank you.
I want to tell you that my dear friend Stephen Costello and I are just totally differing on this issue. I'm an independent businessman. My wife and I own 4 businesses. One of them was utterly failing. It was an apartment building. And the reason it was failing is because we only had 1/3 of the apartments rented out. And in order to get the money to operate that rental property, we needed to increase the number of people who occupied and rented inside the building. Right now, the city of Houston, 2/3 of this city is unsustainable. That means 2/3 of this city does not generate enough money to pay for the cost to serve it. The goal is not local control over 11% of the budget. While we do need pension reform, that's not going to solve the chronic problem of financing. We need to invite people and encourage them to come into this city and share the tax burden. I happen to agree with Marty on this one, that we need to incentivize more businesses to come into the city,
Thank
not
you, Mr. Hall.
penalize city
Mr. King, could we
employees.
also hear some of your ideas?
So let me get you numbers. In the last 5 years, property taxes are up 24%. Sales taxes are up 37%. Your water bill is up 46%. And the city's revenue from fees and permits is up 100%. We're collecting $1 billion more in revenue than we were just 5 years ago, and we can't balance the budget? I mean, give me a break. In the last 5 years, wait, I got more for you. Hang on a second here. They're keeping time here. In the last 5 years, we have gone from $16.5 billion in debt to nearly $20 billion in debt. We've incurred $3.3 billion in additional debt in the last 5 years. At the same time, we were collecting $1 billion more per year. Now, that's just bad management. We do not have a revenue problem. We have a spending problem.
We're all Texans, so there's a saying in Texas, if you find yourself in a hole and you want to get out of it, stop digging first, and then we can get out of it. The city's financial position is bad, and I think that during this campaign, during this election cycle, you as the citizens of this city are going to find out just how bad it is. Everything that Bill King just said is accurate on the numbers, but the sky's not falling. We need good management to get ourselves out of this, and we need vision to make sure that this doesn't happen again, and that we're bringing jobs and we're bringing economic development to this city. First thing I'm going to do is get the people out of the way that caused this problem, and not get us back in the same situation that we were in, or we've been in for the last 2 decades.
I would agree with Reverend Ben Hall over here. Now, in order to get out of debt, we have to increase wealth. And the only way we can do that here in this city is creating more home ownership opportunities. And we just do not have enough here. We need tax roll revenue from property taxes to come in. We need more entrepreneurships. Now, the better jobs come for the qualified people. However, we need people to come out the poverty income that they're in now. So we just can't continue to talk about better jobs. We have to have solutions to get these better jobs. We have to be skillfully trained as well. So there's 2 ways to reduce debt without me actually looking at the city's financial statement. And just like Mr. Ben Hall said, increase the revenue, home ownership, and entrepreneurship. That is fair economic development, and that is fair welfare for your families.
The city of Houston will face its greatest financial challenges in 2016, 17, and 18. The debt service will spike in 2018. I do agree that we need much better management. And what I would offer to you, for the last 21 of my 26 years, I've been spending on the Appropriations Committee in the Texas Legislature. I am vice chair of the Appropriations Committee since 2003 through to the current moment. I've been the one sitting on the Conference Committee balancing a $200 billion budget. When we faced a $10 billion shortfall in 2003, I was at the table balancing the budget. When we faced a $27 billion shortfall in 2011, I was at the table balancing the budget. You have a revenue cap at the city of Houston. We bumped up against it. I would suggest that we amend that for public safety or paying down the debt. That's critically important. On the debt service, which will spike in 2018, we need to smooth that out. I think of everyone that's on this panel, when it comes to actually balancing a budget, and a huge one, I think I'm the person.
Great, thank you. Would you want to move on to the next question or give Mr. Bell an opportunity to answer that? How would the presidents want to do that? Okay, could you re-ask the question? And Chris, you'll have 1 minute to answer. Welcome to politics, Chris.
Good evening, Chris. It's me. I wanted to know, what would you do to help us get out of the debt that the city is in, to help us so that we can get back into the black instead of in the red?
Well, first of all, let me apologize for being late. I really thank you for allowing me to come a few moments late. First of all, my whole campaign is focused on trying to modernize Houston, and I think when we modernize and when we start taking greater advantage of technology like other cities have done, we're going to identify efficiencies and we're going to find less expensive ways of doing things and be able to identify waste and cut that waste. And I think that it's incumbent upon us to look for more modern and better ways of doing things. Obviously, we're also going to have to address the pension issues, but as I've made very clear, I don't plan to balance the city's budget on the backs of the men and women who protect us every day. I think there's a better way forward. But I will say this, there are other cities that have faced much bigger financial problems than the city of Houston. They have dealt with them, and we will do the same here in the city of Houston when I'm mayor.
Before we move on to the next question asked by Mr. Mark McMillan, I believe you're up next. I want to make just two quick announcements. Number one, if you have a question for the candidates, please pass your card up or look for Jessica, who is going to be collecting them. Hold your hand up so if you need something to write on, she'll do that. Number two, I made a mistake earlier. Instead of you're a candidate for office, please let us know your
Candidates Costello, Bell, and Turner. I spoke with many of my residents of my super neighborhoods, and we've come to the conclusion that about a year ago, the community was giving us a major store, grocery store, and they didn't like it. The residents of this community have to go outside of this community for a major grocery chain. We want it, we can't have it. They want it, they didn't want it, they got it. So which one do we have to do? Not want something to get it? We need major stores in this community. Okay, thanks.
Well, thank you for the question, because obviously I've been working on the Food Desert program for 5 years now. And the challenges that we have to do with encouraging the grocery stores to come into the areas that we're willing to help invest in. And when I met with the administration when we first started this program, we focused on 5 areas, which is the 5th Ward, East Side, 3rd Ward, Sunnyside, and the South Park. And those are the areas that we were focusing on. At the time, we did have a small independent grocer that was interested to work with us over in South Union, and that's the Pie Burn store that we opened up there on Scott Street, just north of 610 South, where we gave them a $1.7 million forgiveness note, provided they meet performance measures of number of square footage of healthy produce and meat, as well as job creation on an annual basis. The challenge we continue to have is grocers that are interested in working with the city in some of the underserved areas that we call food deserts. And we continue to work on them. We have 6 grocers that are interested. Each one of them in various stages of development. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Hall? Oh, wait, no, that question was for...
I'll gladly answer this question.
Hold on. You asked that question for Costello, Bell, and Turner, correct? Okay, that's my mistake.
Well, people get me and Ben confused all the time.
Both are tall.
This has actually been an issue that has been brought to my attention for the last 20 years. And I remember leaving a candidates forum back in 1995 and having someone come up to me and talk to me about the food deserts and the lack of grocery stores. And I can assure you that if a major grocery chain comes to City Hall looking for some type of economic incentive, then my position would be the same as Councilmember Boykins and Councilmember Green recently. If they're going to ask for that kind of assistance from the city, then they can damn sure build a store in the neighborhood where it's needed. This has gone on way too long. It is a very serious issue, and City Hall needs to be doing everything it possibly can to get the major chains to locate in neighborhoods throughout the city in the underserved areas.
And let me say that, and I agree with you, people just don't want quality stores. They want communities to be developed. And stores are part of that. They want affordable housing in their neighborhood. They want their communities to look better. They want quality schools in their areas. They don't want them closed and consolidated. They want quality neighborhood schools. And along with that comes quality stores. But it's revitalizing communities. It's not just one piece. When you work on all of these different pieces, all of the pieces come together in the puzzle. And sometimes I think we make a mistake of just targeting one element. But it's a bigger thing. The question is whether or not the city will come to the neighborhood and work with the community leaders in the neighborhood and design a community with the community folk in mind. So we want the development. You want it in District D. You want it in District B. You want it in District A, in all of our communities. So it's not just about quality grocery stores. It's all of the other components which
State
we know
Representative
to each
Turner,
other.
thank you. Thank you very much. We have two more questions from two more of the judges, and then we'll move to audience questions. The next question comes from Ms. Kathleen O'Reilly.